It. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to the Wild, the Naked Truth. Here is our youth explosion. I'm super excited today as we have Terrence Campbell, who's 21 years of age. Terrence, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
As she said, I'm 21 years old. In my fourth year of college at the Art Institute for Virginia Beach for media arts and animation. That's all I really have to say.
Oh, that's fine. Tamika Edwards, she's 25.
Hi, my name is Tamika. I'm 25. I currently work as a dental assistant, and I'm about to enroll in school for nail technician.
Awesome. Awesome. We have Brianna Squire here, 22.
I'm Brianna. I'm 22.
And what do you do?
I am a mortgage loan processor.
Okay, that's good. Sasha Marshall, 24.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sasha. I'm 24 years old. I went to Old Dominion University for criminal justice. I graduated May 2019, and right now I'm working in the school system to break the school to prison pipeline by substitute teaching and working on some programs to instill in the school.
Awesome, awesome. And we have Kiva Johnson, 20.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kiva. I'm 20 years old. I'm a rising junior. Comparative Women's Studies and nursing major at the illustrious Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland, and after I leave Spelman, I plan on becoming a certified registered nurse anesthetist.
Awesome, awesome. So, guys, y'all don't even understand how thankful I am for you guys to be here because a lot has taken place since the first time I tried to schedule this. So, one thing first, we're going to speak on a lot of topics. And the first thing I want to speak on is first, I want to say welcome to adulthood. And how has it been different for you guys compared to what you expected as being adults?
Well, I definitely didn't think about the deeper things. Like, of course, being a parent that I am now, I didn't think about things like accountability, reliability, or things like how you have to self-reflect. You start growing as a person. It's I think a lot more inner stuff you deal with when you're an adult that you don't think of as a kid.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, I know Kiva, you moved away to college, correct? So the independence, how was that different from what you expected?
I would say the independence is about what I expected. I think kind of like what Tamika was saying, accountability and adulthood is and like being on my own is something I'm experiencing a lot more of because it's kind of like I make these actions and when the consequences happen, whether they're good, bad, or whatever, I am the only person that's responsible for it. And I think this is the first time in my life where I'm really starting to see like the cause and effect of my actions and everything I do.
Okay. TJ, now you are far from both of your parents. So how's that? How have that been?
Oof. Well, like for one, I didn't really expect to be where I am. I knew I wanted to do like art when I first came out of high school, and then I moved to Virginia from Niagara Falls. And yeah, adulthood's not at all what I expected. There's definitely a lot of smaller things, like they said, that you just don't expect. And like one of the big things is you gotta, like they said, accountability. Like there's a lot of things, even if it's not your fault, that as an adult you have to solve because once it becomes your problem, it becomes your responsibility to solve it. So that's one of the big things I learned with adulthood.
Okay. And Sasha?
It is not at all what I expected. I just knew I was gonna go into like my dream career. Everything was laid out. I thought I had like you're so ambitious in college. You just know what you're gonna do. And adulthood, is not at all that. There's a lot of things that go into that, especially for me. I've always had to pay bills, but adult bills is a different type of bill. So like just managing money, learning how to do that, especially with what I get, how to manage that, how to still have fun, how to say no. A lot of friendships, how to distinguish between, is this lifelong friendships? Is this just for the right now? What are we gaining? A lot of these questions, we're having fun in college and high school. And I think actually both of them didn't prepare me for adulthood at all, if I could comment on that, because especially college, as far as money management, if it wasn't for me already having to pay for stuff, I would be really lost right now. But it's a lot. The accountability piece is big, learning when to not stress about certain things or how to address certain situations. You have to come at them different. So it's been difficult, but we're making it. Yeah.
I definitely understand that. Brianna, you have something to add to that?
No, they basically covered everything.
Okay. So now that we spoke on adulting and independence, give us some information that your parents have given to you that you actually are utilizing in your independence and your adulthood.
I would say being self-reliable. My mom would always say, if you don't know something, then you need to look it up. You need to research it. That's one of like my biggest things that I go by. Like if I'm having a conversation, I don't know something, it's like, look it up. Or anything you have to do when it comes to handling business, there's so many things that you have to learn to take care of yourself in your life, especially being on your own. So it's like, just teach yourself whatever it is that you need to learn to get ahead and help yourself in life.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mark. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Or something that your parents have taught you that you utilize now. I know we as parents have taught you guys a lot, but there's always something that sticks out when you enter into the world of adulthood and independence. So I was asking, what do you utilize out of all of those lessons the most that your parents have taught you? So
for me, I would say independence. They really taught me how to not depend on another individual for anything, money, housing, any type of thing, because they want that, no matter, life comes at us quick, right? So if anything happens to them, they want to make sure that I'm self-reliant and independent enough to carry on and know what to do and not crumble after every single conflict or every single bill or everything, So just to be more independent, that one really stuck with me, because that way, if anything does happen, which I hope it doesn't, but if anything does happen, I would know how to adjust and move without their guidance. Because sometimes, I love living with my mom. It's great. And, sometimes it's like, if she goes, what am I going to do? But she has taught me ways in which, how to balance money, how to do certain things like that. So that way I am able to progress and move forward, because fortunately everybody's not going to be here forever. So that was a big thing that they taught me that is important.
Okay. And TJ?
One of the big things that I learned from both my parents is working hard. Like they really instilled that in me. You have to work hard for anything in life. And then a quote that I remember from my father specifically, he used to always say was that actions speak louder than words. Words have a lot of weight to them, obviously. Like, you got to stand by what you say, but what you do has more weight than what you say at the end of the day. So those are the two big things I took away from my parents.
Okay. Kiva?
Well, I would say the two lessons that my mom taught me that sticks with me the most. The first one is she always talks about wanting me to take the reins of my life. And so what that means is like, stop letting life and things just happen to you. At some point in time, you have to, like, back to that accountability we were talking about earlier, like at some point you have to, stop letting life just like rejection, and stop letting the bad things in life just weigh you down, but really take the reins of your life and really just keep pushing forward to the goals that you have set for yourself, and stop letting outside things kind of like deter you from that path. And then the second thing she taught me was, um, I don't remember the exact wording of it, but it basically, it's no matter what a situation might look like at a certain time, no matter how bad things might seem, how anxious you might be, just know that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I have to really tell myself that, like, especially for me, because like I get a lot of anxiety sometimes and I can really like beat myself up about certain things, but I can always just have a certain amount of peace just knowing that somehow or another life just always finds a way of just ironing itself out.
Well, that's awesome. That's a very good lesson. Brianna, do you have anything that you would like to share?
I guess one of the main lessons that I've learned throughout my life from my mom is, I guess, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You need to have um, a basic foundation of who you are and your own values and morals. That way, that you don't necessarily just fall for any little tip for tat thing that people say. Um, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys have honestly taken on some of the information that we, as parents, have provided you. I know that there's a lot of other generations have placed upon your generation. So, can we kind of go over some of those? Because I do know that in a lot of people in my age bracket and older feels like your generation is not respectful. So I know that that's one, and I know that you guys have experienced it on your own on different chords of different types of stereotypes. What other stereotypes do you guys feel is not accurate for your generation?
For me, um, it's that I always have to be strong. You know, as an African American woman,
Mhm.
I have to be strong always. Can't show emotion. Can't be too loud. Can't be too, all those stereotypes. And sometimes it gets hard because, I am also a human being and we go through things as well. And mental health is very important. I think it's something that people need to focus on a lot more than we talk about. And no, I'm not just saying a post on Instagram. We really need to dig deep into mental health because it does stem from childhood. But I feel like being strong all the time, it's carrying that title sometimes is, this is for everybody, man, woman, it's exhausting. So I want people to understand how important self-care is, and that if you're not good, if you're not taking care of yourself, there is no way you can take care of anybody else, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a child, whether that's your job. It's so carrying the weight of being strong all the time, I think, is definitely one stereotype that I've learned to. Yes, I can be strong, but I can also show emotion. I can be empathetic. I can be empathetic for what people go through. You know what I'm saying? Just because I have not experienced it does not mean I have to talk down or shed light or anything like that on a situation. We need to be a little bit more compassionate, I think, as a people as a whole. That's my.
Another one I would say is the whole technology thing, that we're into technology so much. But nowadays, it's like a lot of us grow our businesses through online. There's a lot of online businesses. There's a lot of benefits. People make a lot of money learning to do that type of stuff. And also, you have education at your fingertips. Literally anything that you want to know, you can just a click of a button research anything. YouTube, there's tutorials for everything. You want to learn something, just any video. For a lot of stuff, I look up a lot of stuff on YouTube if I want to make something, or recipes. Not well, I still do like recipe books, but I can go online. I can look up recipes because I love to cook. And also a lot of digital stuff. It saves time. Like so many things, it really does help with that. It's like it's a convenience for a lot of things.
Well, I'm one of those adults that feel like, or other generation that feel like y'all do utilize your phones a lot,
Yeah.
and sometimes they make it feel like, you guys are distracted or distant from us, because you no longer speaking to us or showing emotion to us. Everything is in a text message or, all of those things. So I get it now, after speaking with you guys, that it's not a substitute or you replacing us. You just basically obtaining knowledge. So that's awesome. As far as, is there any other stereotypes that you guys basically have experienced that is not true with every, like things you guys may have and some things that you don't, but to let other people understand you guys more? Is there anything else in that category that you guys want to express?
I think one of the big ones is when people say that we're one of the laziest generations. I think that is a lie right there. Like, especially being in art school, like a lot of people see a lot of the artists as just being, lazy, just draw all day. But I've seen people there work harder than I've seen like many other people work. So, especially with the like in our generation, well, I don't think we're one of the laziest. I think that we just work differently. I want to say than the generation before us, because there's a lot more. There's a lot of different jobs and fields and things that weren't there before that are there now.
Yes.
That's true. That is true.
I would say
Eva?
the one stereotype that I don't like about our generation is that we're overly sensitive to everything. And I think that definitely like sensitivity does in our generation does have a place, but I hate when people use you guys are sensitive as a way to silence us trying to have conversations about the normalization of forms of oppression within our community, within our society. Like, for example, I remember I was talking to one of my older cousins, and he said, "Oh, that's gay or something." And I was just like, "You can't say that." And then one of the other cousins later on said, "Oh, that's retarded." And I was like, "You cannot say that." And it's not that I'm being like overly sensitive. Like, I don't. It's just to me, if you have the option of using another word or thinking about something differently, or just changing your mindset about something as simple as that, then I want to be a part of that. And not that it's like we're trying to be overly sensitive about it, but why not use another word or change the way you do something if the way you're already doing it has such a negative history and negative attachment to it that's not even what you're trying to give off. So I guess what I try to do is I try to match people's intention with their action, because sometimes people unknowingly might say it.
And that's good. You bring it to their point. You bring it to their attention so that they know. And I'm pretty sure once somebody hear it from being brought to their attention, it will make them more aware every time it's used. Anytime after that. So that's a good point. You spoke on the oppression, and I know a lot has gone on in your generation, piggybacking off of previous generations when you guys, I say you guys, as far as your generation has started a protest in which it became worldwide. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. And a lot of people really don't understand, I guess, what intentions you guys have as far as what's going on with the protest. So let's go ahead and get into to that. Let's go ahead and speak on what do y'all think the protest started with, your expectations of the protest, and what are you standing for?
Well, I want to start by saying, because a lot of people are under the misconception that the protest is only because of George Floyd. That's not the case at all. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because this is something that we've seen for years, I feel. From like, I can't even say like starting with Trayvon Martin. A lot of people like to use that as like, an inciting incident. No, it started like way back with Emmett Till, all that. It's been happening for generations.
Yes.
So the protest, we're saying Black Lives Matter and all this stuff is because we feel that we're being treated as if we don't matter. We've been treated like this for generations. So even though things have definitely changed for the better, they still can change more. Like, yes, we have more freedom than we had back in the 1960s and stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's at a point where we need to stop because we're still not equal. We feel basically. That's my opinion on it.
And I think to protest, a protest is happening in the middle of a pandemic. It's like that's the biggest scale of how tired we are, that we're going to protest in the middle of a pandemic and people are out risking their lives. And it's like, I think people are tired. And one thing I expect, or at least I hope, is that it's going to bring some serious changes. And there will be a lot more people whose eyes are opened to a lot of different things. There's systematic racism that goes so deep in so many different areas. And I think also another big thing is the mindset, changing people's mindsets and educating people. But I think also there has to be, I feel like there has to be more than just education. Like some people it's so deep in their roots that it's like, how do you even begin to change their mind? Like it's almost like it's embedded in some people, the way they think. So it's like, one thing I hope is that there will be some type of huge change to come from all of the protests.
Okay.
For me, in undergrad, I participated in a lot of protests from all different type of topics. The difference with this one is, like Terrence said, I think this was it. We're tired. You know what I'm saying? This is the one that, okay, what are we going to do now? We need to really make some serious changes. What are we going to do? The first step is getting out there and letting them know we have to, everything, the whole system has to come down. The whole system. We're tired. You know what I'm saying? And like Terrence said, the one that did it for me really was Trayvon. Okay? We let that one, he got off not guilty. All right. To me, that was the green light for a lot of people. And I'm not even going to say cops, because once again, I want everybody to understand it's not every cop, right? It's not every white person. So I don't want people to think that. But now that was the green light. Okay, y'all, we can kill and get away with it. We're tired. We're tired. So I think the protest was the first step is who is with us, who is against us. Who are we actually fighting? Now we're trying to spark change. You know what I'm saying? And then this is what we have to go back to the drawing board and really talk about, because like I said, I went to school at first I was biochem. So I saw racism in a different light in the science field. Then I switched over my focus to criminal justice. And even in class, we was taught about systematic racism. We was taught about these things, but seeing it is a totally different, experiencing it is a totally different game changer. So I think the protest was the first step to say, all right, you guys, like, we're tired. We're tired. What can we do? You know what I'm saying? And that, I know we're going to get into more questions, so I'll stop there and get somebody else.
That's perfectly fine. Kiva, could you give us your take on the protests and what's going on?
Well, I think that Tamika bringing up the global pandemic actually helps tie everything in together, because when we think about the state of our country with the global pandemic, and we're seeing, because before the protest even started, we were knee deep in quarantine, and it was health disparities between Black communities, low income communities filled with essential workers versus higher income, majority white communities. We were really starting to see those disparities, and it was like the veil was being lifted and they can no longer lie to us. And so then when the protests happened, it was almost kind of like full circle in a way. Like now the veil is completely lifted off all forms of equality that are within this country, because clearly, not just in the aspect of health, but in the aspect of justice, the justice system, we are seeing it like back to back to back. And because we don't even know what the future is about to look like for education, we don't know what the future is about to look like just to even go to the grocery store, to sit in a restaurant. This is the time for reconstruction within our country, within our community, and the way of life. So I think the protest could not have happened at a better time. And I don't mean to sound ignorant, like I hate that he had to lose his life like that, but I think that if if ever there was a time for change, now is the time.
Right. Okay. Brianna?
They basically hit every point that I wanted to discuss about the protests. Yeah, we're tired. There's nothing more to say about that. You can't discuss it with people who don't really want to understand. You can't really, because all we have is all the proof. And honestly, you can tell, like, I know people wanted to talk about the looting and the rioting that took place prior to us. Not us. When I say us, I mean we as a Black community. Um, when that was happening, it was all over the news. I don't know. From what I've seen, the news has stopped showing that we are still out there protesting. There's protests happening today, in fact, and all these other things that's happening, and they're not showing it on the media anymore, but it's still happening. But you were showing it when there was looting and rioting that wasn't actually caused by Black folks. If you go on the internet, there's actually a whole bunch of videos and evidence with these people in Black who happen to be Caucasian, and they're planting the bricks, planting the wood to start the fires, and all this, throwing the first stone. So it's like, they wanted to portray us a certain way for that the media can make it seem as though we are, I guess, savages, and so that they can have a reason to attack us when we were in fact peacefully protesting. Um, my take on the protest, as Kiva said, it is needed. As Terrence said, we are tired. As Sasha said, it's literally like there's so much that needs to be done. Like it's not going to stop here. And like Tamika, I hope it doesn't stop. We need to see actual change, because if this was to happen again, I don't know about the future of our country. I'm truly worried. That's basically my piece on that.
Okay. Well, you know, what TJ was identifying in the beginning, as far as we want equality, someone had asked, are we really free? Do y'all feel like we do have freedom?
I feel like we don't have as much freedom as we need. We obviously have more freedom than Black people have when they first came to the U.S. We don't have the amount of freedom that, how do I say this? Like, we don't have the same amount of freedom that, well, I basically a white person would have, like that people have, that actual. I don't want to say. I'm trying to word it carefully because there's a certain way I'm trying to word this.
People.
We don't have as much freedom as we need. Is basically what I'm. That's basically the way to simplify what I'm trying to say. So we have a certain amount of freedom, but we don't have the measure of freedom that's needed for our people.
To agree with that, I don't feel we are free. Because if we are technically free, even if the Constitution was drawn up and was not made for us, by the way, the Constitution was made to be changed over the years to fit the needs of the people, period. First of all. Second of all, when this country wants to say that they're the land of the free, why is it that some rights need to be for others and not for all, which it says for all? You know, it's really complicated to try to say that we are free when, first of all, people are stuck in the mindset of a slave, because of all the hatred that we have for ourselves and the oppression that's deep rooted in our DNA. So first, that's just that point. But like, I think freedom is like if you say that I have the right to bear arm or carry an open weapon, then I should have the right to do that without being surrounded by officers questioning me, what am I doing, what's my intentions with that particular armor. But I see the same person of a different complexion doing the same thing, and I can't be in peace. Like, why don't you want to question him? There's so many aspects of it. When you ask what is freedom, technically it's if we have these basic human rights. It's not even equality. It's just basic human rights that we are literally asking for because we have the right to live. Most people, as people have said, you in fact too, mother, have told me that like literally I gave birth to you, I gave you life. So therefore, you should have the ability, the capabilities to survive. And I don't understand why us just walking in the street deserves death. So no, we're not free in any aspect of the word. Yes, we may can choose our clothes and what we want to wear and what we want to watch on TV, but that's not true freedom.
Small thing I want to add is that I feel like our basic rights are being treated as a privilege more than rights, and that's a huge problem with it too.
Yes.
My parents are of Bayesian descent, so they came over as what they call immigrants, but this is not our land in the first place. But we ain't getting into all that. So anyway, they came over here because they said, Sasha, we want a better life for you and your brother, and this is the land of the free. Yeah. As soon as they got over here and moved to Brooklyn, New York, they realized, this is not at all what they said on the commercials, back in this is not what we thought, you know what I mean? We are not free mentally. We are not free physically. We are not free at all. Everything we do is being watched. Everything we are doing is not enough. Everything we are doing it's tiresome. It's tiresome. Raised in Brooklyn and then most of my life, the rest of my life in Virginia, you can see it. You can see the disparities. You can see who lives predominantly in the hoods, as they call them, and who lives in the wealthier neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? So freedom to me, everybody is able to get the same opportunity to things, the same amount of scholarships, the same amount of acceptance letters. I don't look at you. They shouldn't even really ask you your race on a lot of these applications for a loan. I should not have to tell you that I'm Black because you're already looking at me like, is she gonna pay it back? You know what I'm saying? It should not. That's not free. Yes. That's limited freedom. That's limited freedom. You know what I mean? So unfortunately for them, by that time they came up, it's too late. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it is a better life. I'm not saying I'm thankful that we came over here because it is a better life than provided in Barbados. However, the freedom aspect, we are not mentally free. We are not physically free over here. And until we break the whole system down, as they said, slavery just got reestablished. It never got abolished. So I think we can, that could lead into another thing, but I'll let somebody else.
It's even like one of the most basic things, not even being able to wear your natural hair. Like, you mean to tell me I'm going to lose my job because I wore my natural hair to work? Like, I've seen so many stories like that. And I remember there was a newscast. It was a newswoman. She wore her hair, I believe she had it straight usually. And then one day she decided to wear her hair in her natural texture and they fired her. And it was a huge thing because it's like, what do you mean? This is my hair in its natural state. So you mean to tell me how I naturally look can't be accepted? Like, it's really ridiculous.
Now, I know we all have different like hair, like TJ has braids, Brianna has a very short female haircut. Kiva, you have cornrows down. Have you guys ever experienced any form of, I guess, racism or any form of issues when it comes down to your hair? As Tamika brought that up.
As far as my hair goes, I've definitely seen or have experienced a lot of microaggressions and racism as far as my hair. Because before I had the dreadlocks, I've had a lot of more African style hair. So I've had the high top, I had an afro before. I've even had cornrows before. And like, it seems like every time you change your hair, people have something to say. Like, for instance, when I first got these, I actually did have a white person try to come up to me and try to grab my hair. Yo, what'd you do with your hair? And I'm like, don't touch my hair. Like, that's a big no-no. So it's something that you get all the time. And also, if you like, this is something I saw the other day. If you go on Google and look up professional hair versus unprofessional hair, for unprofessional hair, a lot of them are African type hairstyles like dreadlocks and afros and stuff. And when you look up professional hairstyles, a lot of them are very Caucasian straight hair type stuff. So you just see it all over the place, I feel.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember one day I wore my hair in an afro to work, and one of the doctors told me that I looked like I got electrocuted.
Oh my!
And I was so offended. Like, excuse me, what do you mean I look like I got electrocuted? He's like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. And it's like, no, like how else did you mean it? What what are you trying to say? So it really opened my eyes. Like, okay, so I see how things are. I see how, a lot of people think, and yeah.
That's kind of crazy. It always surprises me how free people are able to speak exactly what they mean and what they say, but then when we speak in a different way or identify with something of our culture, then it becomes a problem. We have so if someone was to ask you guys, how are you guys finding out about your history? Because we definitely know the history is not being taught in schools. So to be able to do these protests and know your history, what was not taught in schools, how are you guys identifying, guys learning your history to speak on top of and to be a part of?
Um, in regards to my history, whether both Black and Asian, we really need to cherish our grandparents. Unfortunately for me, majority of my grandparents passed, so my history was in pictures, in articles they kept, in a lot of the stuff to show the slave revolt, excuse me, in Barbados, because British was stealing our cane sugar. They would kill our slaves for them, for the arcane sugar to put in their tea. So a lot of that history is passed down through that. However, when I was raised here in New York and in Richmond, all the knowledge we need is in books. And that's why I push a lot of the youth when I teach them to read, because a lot of your history has been written by some of the people we're talking about, Martin Luther King. My favorite one is The Life of a Slave by W.E.B. Du Bois. Beautiful piece. Actually, $4 on Amazon if you guys want to check that out. Really, really, really good books. Help to start putting our mindset into what it was like to go through that. You know what I mean? Because you have to think about the mental. I couldn't even put myself in the mental strain that our ancestors had to go through during those times. So a lot of things, once they did learn how to read and write, and once what Tamika said earlier, the internet, you have to sort through articles though. You can't read anything. A lot of articles on Google is fabricated, so you really need to do. That's why in college it did teach us this about what is it called, scholarly journals, and those type of articles that were actually written by African Americans and written in dissertations and stuff like that for our history. It definitely, a lot of the stuff too is on social media for us to look at and look back at. Like I learned about. Sorry, there was one, and when I remember it, I'll state it. But that was a very good one as well. So history, we have to dig deep, but we need to cherish our grandparents, and we need to cherish our older generation as well, because they know they've lived through it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a beautiful thing. Go ahead, team.
Well, I would say that like when I first found out that there was more history to Black people than what we were taught in school, I'm not like, my first reaction was angry, like mad or whatever. But I've started to find out that a lot of the responsibility to find out that and teach it to the next generation falls on my shoulders now that I know that. I have to, as Sasha said, I have to look that stuff up myself. It's up to me. And it goes back to like what we were saying about adulthood. That's your responsibility to try looking that type of stuff up, teach it to the next generation so that they don't have questions about that. Because me, honestly, I wouldn't even have learned it if it wasn't for, well, my father. Like, he taught me some of the things too. Also, I've had one of my college teachers, this really intelligent Black woman. Like, I was doing this article on Black history, and she really pushed me to like look more into it than what I had on the paper, because I just basically went off of what I was taught in high school. So a lot of it falls on our shoulders to look it up, especially since we have technology now. And we have a lot more avenues to look this stuff up and find out the information than the generations before us.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I think we're learning. Our generation is getting to know a lot more and learning that what we were taught in school is not real history. And now that my little brother's in school and, he tells me some of the things, I ask him, like, what are you learning in history class? And it's like, Like, where do I start? Where do I begin to tell him, like, there's so much more. The story is so different. And it's really sad to think about that this is what the schools taught us. That, again, this is what the path that they're leading us down to believe. It's like, it's a lot of deception going on. And it is important to self-educate, because if we don't self-educate, it's like you're leading a blind way. So yes, it's like, as long as you self-educate. And I remember, like TJ just said, the first time I learned that there was so much more that, and Black history was so different, it was mind-blowing. Like, I could not believe that. Wow, I was kind of hurt, like I can't believe what I was taught in school was a lie.
Right, right. Now, one thing I really want to ask you guys is, Black Lives Matter. Um, I hear so many people say all lives matter, or blacks killing blacks. If Black Lives Matter, why do they keep continuing killing each other? How does that make you guys feel, and what do you want to say to people who think in that way?
Um, for one, I want to say that I feel like people doing that are trying to deflect from the issue at hand. When when you have one issue, you can't try to divert attention from that issue by talking about other issues. Yes, black on black crime is an issue in its own, but that's not the issue we're talking about right now. We're talking about how Black lives matter. We say all lives matter. Yes, they do, but we didn't say Black lives only matter. We're saying we don't feel we matter, so all lives can't matter if we don't matter. Simple as that. So when people are saying that, they're trying to change the narrative and trying to divert from the issue so that it can seem like it's not as big of an issue as it actually is, which in reality it is, which is what we're trying to expose with the movement as a whole. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought Key was going to start talking. To backtrack off of TJ is basically like when you say all lives matter, we're not saying that Black lives, trump over all the other races, and that we matter more. We're not even saying that it's more significant. Matter is the minimum. It is the basic minimum that we as people have to. We deserve to live. We have the right to just be on this earth and live our lives. We don't have to be sacrificed from the streets. So when we're saying Black lives matter, we're not saying that it matters more, we're better than you, our race is the only race that matters and all this other stuff. We're not supremacists. And also when you say all lives matter, that's you're trying to again deflect, and you're also you are trying to water down our message. Our message is not that Black lives is going to matter more. And I think people who say that are actually afraid of admitting that Black lives in their country were treated differently than them, because we're making them have to look at themselves. And look at themselves and how their family sees people and how they are actually attacking people in their head, because we already have these notions that we judge people. Everybody judges everybody. We judge each other. But because you judge them to the point where you think like, okay, well, my life is way better than theirs. And it's also a sense of entitlement. They have to make it about them, if you don't recall, because in America, we grow up, everybody has a sense of entitlement. But for those who are of Caucasian descent, they feel like this country is theirs. They're taught all throughout our education system that this country is theirs. So they are on top of everybody else because they are allowed to have their opinion, but no one else is allowed to have an opinion. So with that being said, that them saying all lives matter is to make it about them, because when it's not about them, I think they're a little butthurt.
Small thing I want to add too is that's if you look up, I think it's just the basics of debating. That's a fallacy right there by trying to deflect like that. That's the red herring fallacy. I recommend looking into those, because the fallacies are things you can look into when you can tell someone's argument is invalid because they're trying to invalidate it by doing things. Red herring is when you're trying to bring attention to another issue to deflect from one issue. So I recommend looking at those because it will help you in any type of argument.
Okay. Kiva?
I kind of like what Brianna said. I think the the thing that's most frustrating about this Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter kind of battle that's going on social media or whatever is when people try to justify what happens to Black people based on like criminal past or like criminal history. When to me, I'm going to be honest, the idea of crime is so stupid to me, and it's so like relative because our society and what's right and what's wrong changes over time. Because not even 150 years ago it was a crime for us to use certain bathrooms, for us to drink out of certain water fountains. So to say someone is a criminal based on what they felt like they might have needed to do in certain desperate situations does not deserve for them to die. That is one thing that I hate seeing about people talking about, oh, well, so and so used to sell drugs. Okay, but in what world does selling drugs mean you should just be killed in the street? In what world does robbing somebody mean you should be killed in the street? That's what I'm not seeing, is this justification for the destruction of Black bodies. I that's something that I just really cannot get with. And like this, like the one comment says, is that really goes back to history. I didn't get to answer the last question, but I will say, like, when it comes to history for me, I think learning my Black history, it really started at me coming to an HBCU, and that's just the God honest truth. And coming to Spelman, I have learned about so many great women. I mean, I've learned about Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker. I can't think of. I'm kind of hit a blank right now, but those are like my top two. And I would say that it makes me angry that and Audre Lorde. I want to really mention Audre Lorde. But it makes me really angry that like the average person cannot tell you anything about these three ladies. But when it comes to Black issues, you have people like who are very problematic within the community. Like you'll have people like T.I. have a whole like panel and discussion about Black issues. And not that, he can't use his platform to highlight good things, but it's like, why it just angers me that certain people are given platforms and certain people are given the privilege to speak on us when they really don't have a lot of experience, and they have like negative history that kind of really conflicts with the message that they're trying to say about Black Lives Matter.
Mm. Wow.
If I could just touch really quickly on the Black on Black crime piece on in what you asked. I am one who firmly believes, the environment that we are placed in is, disgusting. We all see the predicaments that we are in. And I am one person that solely believes that us as a people need to come together and work on Black crime. However, I have also been educated in the fact that, and people may disagree with me, and that is okay, but you cannot emphasize on Black crime when there is white on white crime, when there is Hispanic on Hispanic crime, when there is Asian on Asian crime. Every race, due to the proximity in which they live in, will create crime. So yes, because you don't hear about Tony robbing his stepdad in the mansions over on the hills, that does not mean that white on white crime does not exist. You can not only focus, because once again, and we need to really take a look at media, right? Because all we ever see, breaking news, shooting in, the Black neighborhood so people are going to automatically assume, oh, well, they're killing each other. So it gives us justification that is not a justification. Okay. That is your own intent. And I do believe that those people, the officers who have killed these men and women, because we need to shed light on the women too. They had intent to kill. They wanted to kill an African American that day. And it just so happened that how the story unfolded, whether they ran a stop sign, whether they ran whatever, that justified to them the crime. And I do need us to stop emphasizing on, that's always, other people's perspective is, well, you guys kill each other all the time. No, we do kill each other all the time, but every race has one-on-one crime. So I do think I was educated on this recently by reading certain articles about why black on black crime can't be an excuse that people use, because every single race commits, it's due to what's in your proximity. You know what I'm saying? Just because you don't hear about, you know, cocaine overdose in the hills, that doesn't mean that it is not crime, because it does come from a Caucasian dealer, right? But we don't hear about that on the news. We hear about Tyrone getting killed because he was accidentally out going to the grocery store and it was a robbery. That's not fair. So I think we as people too, we do need to take responsibility, and that's a discussion though for Black community to have, not for anybody outside of our community to have. That is for us to have. That, hey, you guys, they put us in this predicament. You know, we need to start, you know, talking it out, communicating. That's what goes back to these discussions. So I just wanted to touch on that.
That was a good touching point, honestly. You all brought some very, very valid points from your knowledge and your generation. As we're speaking on the protest and all, what is the expectations of the protest? When do you think that it will end? And what do you think the new world, or the world that you guys are creating, is going to look like?
I'm gonna say, plain and simply, it's not gonna end. Oh wait, somebody else said something. But yeah, I was gonna say, plain and simply, it's not gonna end until. Oh, thank you. It's not gonna end until we feel that we are free. As we touched on earlier, we don't feel like we are fully free right now because there's a lot of bias against our people. There's a lot of, you know, microaggressions. There's a lot of, you know, police killings. There's all of this. There's a lot of deep-rooted racism when it comes to the U.S. So until we see that change, then this is not going to end. And if we don't see that change, if we see it go in the opposite direction, then it'll only get worse. Like straight up. That's how I feel it is.
I think at the rate I see, because I feel like I'm seeing more and more videos of, you know, what people are calling Karens. I feel like I'm seeing so many videos. It almost seems as if like we're so far from getting to where we want to be. I think our fighting now is going to be, who knows? We don't even know if it's going to be for our grandchildren. But we do know that with generations, you know, there has been progress up to now, but it's not where we want to be. One thing I do hope to see is that it is safer for when my son gets older, that, you know, we're not worried about the cops shooting him, God forbid, when he walks down the street. It's like, that's not anything I want to have to think about. I just hope in the future that that's something with police brutality, that's one of the biggest things that will change. It's like our time period now is, who knows what's going to happen.
I feel like what I want to see continue to happen is that the veil keeps getting lifted from these different systems that have been in place for so long. Because, like, I saw this tweet the other day that said, oh my gosh, the world is getting worse and worse. And somebody replied to her, no, the world isn't getting worse. This has always happened. It's just now becoming reality to you because you've been able to have privileges that have blinded you from it. And people have actually worked to hide it from you. But the world is not getting worse. This stuff has been happening. So what I hope continues to happen is we see with the pandemic, we see the health disparities in our community. That veil has been lifted. We see that the police is, well, finally, we see that the police is just a very corrupt system where, I'm just going to say, like, people can murder with a badge on. That veil has been lifted. And so I think, you know, even in our own community, we're starting to see how vulnerable and unprotected Black women are, Black trans women are. Those veils have been lifted. And I just hope that these veils keep getting lifted, because it isn't until people clearly see the problem. And I hate that it takes like death and like all these negative things to happen for people to see the problem. But the truth is that people are not going to see the problem until it's right in their face, until it's a 9-minute video of a man literally dying. People just don't see that. And so my hope for the future is that people just really get to see what I feel like I've been saying for the longest time. People have been calling me like the crazy lady on the street, but that's what I hope people finally get to realize, that these systems that have been in place for so long, that we have normalized and that have just been a part of our daily lives, that we really see ways in which I guess I don't know what to call them. I call them the higher ups, the 1%, the suits or whatever, that the suits are really trying to puppet master us to do. And that we think we have freedom, like we were talking about earlier, like we think we have freedom, but is it really freedom if you're only given but so many options? Is it really freedom if everything is already laid out for you to choose? And so I hope that's what people see, that these freedoms that they're fighting for and that they say they love about this country and the land of the free, is that when you go across the pond to Europe and everything, they're looking at us like a joke. Our country is a joke right now. People are making fun of us everywhere. They're protesting because the veil has been lifted. This big bad country that we love and that we it's not that good. It's just not.
Kiva has definitely hit on all the points I was about to say. I do not think the protest will end because, unfortunately, we have many layers to go through. The first thing we all want in the protest, the first step, is arresting every single cop and every single Black killing possible. That's the first step. Now, is that over 100 and something police officers? Not my problem. Arrest and trial every single one of them. That's step one. Then we got to break it down to the justice system. Tear that whole thing down. Then you got to go to the government. Tear that whole thing down with the president that these people have put in. Okay? Tear that down. Then you got to go through defunding the police in general. There's no reason why NYPD has a $1.3 billion budget and their books is not updated in education in their school systems. That is disgusting. That is absolutely horrible. You have found riot gear for these protests, but you have not found PPE for our first responders. Not okay. Not okay. Then we have to go into all the layers. All those kids that are in cages. It's a whole. It's like an ongoing Ferris wheel of things that we have to break down. And I don't know what that's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take, but I know that people are going to be out in these streets until every single thing, every single issue is fixed.
Brianna?
Well, thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Kiva. I have no points to make because of you two. You've basically, you mastered that right there. I guess just to add on for expectations wise, I would like to see more empathy. And I'm talking about empathy for everybody, not just our community, even though we are the ones in the spotlight right now. And the reason why I say that is because when we empathize, not sympathize, but when we empathize, we're capable of putting ourselves in their shoes. We're never going to truly understand what everybody else is feeling. Like, I'm not going to understand how the Latino and the Hispanic community is with immigration and their children in cages right now. Like, that's a whole other discussion that we're going to bring up probably later on. Well, not in this episode, but we just need empathy for each other. Why is it that we have to march down these streets? We have to protest, we have to riot, we have to loot just for them to arrest officers who committed a crime? Like, I honestly, it just amazes me how many people are coming forward and even being on like taped, showing that they will lie to police officers, knowing the damage they will make. And I guess you guys call them Karens. I call them Karen too. I don't really care. Them and how all they are like, we're having these physical evidence now, but we just lack empathy in our community. And I also believe this goes for the 1% that's trying to puppeteer everything. I think they don't, because their money and their status has put them so high up that they don't understand the individual human anymore. They don't have the same survival tactics and needs that we do. And because of that, they're not capable of empathizing. And I think that when we truly try to empathize with each other, that's when the systematic and all this other crap is actually going to break down. When it stops becoming about money and we actually see people as people and individuals, then we can move forward. I agree completely that we need to strip down and reform. This government has layers. We need to utilize these layers to the best of our abilities, as well as bring it down on the outside as well. There's so many things that we as a community has to do. This protest is not going to end. It's not going to be silenced all because they're not like showing it on the news and the media anymore. It's going to continue. And if it's not shit, I'm going to still be out there on these streets protesting. So that's where you're going to catch me at. Yes, that's basically what I have to say. Sorry for the younger viewers.
Another small thing I want to say as far as expectations go too is that I want to make sure that the next generation after us, isn't facing the same issues that we're facing. Because at the end of the day, if we look back generations, if it wasn't for the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, the Harriet Tubmans, we would still be facing the same issues that they were facing. So when it goes forward to the next generation, I don't want them to be also having to deal with police brutality and the same stuff that we're protesting for now. All this stuff needs to change now so that the next generation can fight their own battles and not our battles too. So that's what I said it also comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Now I know all of you guys spoke on the government. Let's go ahead and touch the politics a little bit, because you guys are protesting, and a lot of people feel like you are protesting, but will you still go out there and vote? And the importance of voting, because I've heard a lot of young people say they were going to hold their votes until change came, and and then some people say no, change comes when you vote. So it's kind of a seesaw with it when it comes down to young people and voting. So what do you guys have to say about that?
I say everybody has a part to play. If you are going to withhold your vote, and you're going to be out here in the streets and stuff like that, you have to understand that though your one vote does not matter, as a collective, our voices matter. Again, if it's just me protesting in the street by myself, no one's going to pay me any attention. But when there's 10,000s, hundreds of thousands of us all around the world utilizing their voices, we're going to be way louder. And that's the same concept with voting. So your one vote may not matter, but as a collective, if we can come together as people, we can implement change through the system. Even though, again, everybody has their part to play. So, of course, the system is not always going to work because, voter suppression and those other things. But if we tend to notice these errors that's in the system and we point them out saying, hey, and again, put it in people's faces to show that this is their problem too, because this can happen to you. Your votes can be suppressed and all these other things. Then as a collective, we can come together and create reform, in my opinion.
I want to start by saying that when the Constitution was originally made, it was made to be able to change. Even though it was made by white men for white men, it was made to be able to change. And this has been seen throughout history. When prohibition happened and they tried to prohibit alcohol, that got changed back quick once it started becoming an issue. Slavery started becoming an issue, and they changed that. Even though I don't feel like they fully took away slavery, because there's still loopholes in there, but those laws have changed. So we have the power to make them change. So the biggest thing is learning that piece of paper, the Constitution, learning what those laws are, learning how we can get it to change, and then going out and voting. Like you said, voting is really important, not only for the president, but for the other two branches, because there are two branches aside from the executive branch. We have to basically have to have more political knowledge, because that's what basically makes the whole U.S., turn or whatever. Also, yes, protesting is important too, because we do have our First Amendment. You have to have your voice be heard at the end of the day. That's what the reason for having that amendment is. If KKK members are allowed to go out there and protest, then we should be able to have our voice too. They shouldn't be able to do that, first of all. That's another thing. So there's a lot of different layers when it comes to this, like we said before. So that's my little 2 cents in on it.
Go ahead, Tamika. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think there's also there has to be more education as far as the different types of elections instead of just the main election, because I have family members that have asked, like, who am I voting for as far as Senate or anything else? And I've heard people say that when they do actually go vote, like when they get their papers, that it's complicated, that they haven't been taught where to look, how to fill it out. And it's like, you also think about that it's not something that you were taught in school. They didn't teach you the most important things that we have to do daily in high school or anywhere else. And I think it's important to also make sure your family members vote, make sure your friends are voting, make sure you know who's running, who's in your city. And yeah, it's just a big thing on education.
Mhm.
I think the biggest discrepancy, I think that especially young people, because I had this conversation with my brother, he's like, well, Sasha, I want to vote, but for example, all this, which I already knew because I almost had a heart attack when it came out that he was president, but with the discrepancies of voting infiltration and how Trump was able to get the Russians to, skew the votes, and that's how he got in, et cetera, because technically Hillary won, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of young people are like, well, Sasha, I go vote, and then this happens anyway. You know what I'm saying? So what do I do? And like I try to tell them, I think for me, the biggest reason why I push voting, and I definitely vote in my general election for my state, because that is your lawmakers. That is who, now coming out that Northam was blackface back then and all. See, all this is why we need research. This is why, because we as Black people, we Democrats, so we need to look at individual people. What can they do for me as an African American woman? Are they going to help me? Are they going to hurt me? What is their values? What do they focus on? So I think the reason why I get out there and vote is because, one, my ancestors fought their butt off to get that right in the first place. Okay, because we didn't have that right, and women, we definitely didn't have that right till y'all know the time. I ain't even about to go into the material, but and also you knowing that sense of feeling of you knowing that you put that vote in, your voice was heard. All you can do is hope for the best. If they choose to infiltrate and do, that comes out, as we see it's coming out now again with confirmations of, Russian involvement in Trump's election, et cetera, et cetera. So all we can do is do our part. We cannot worry about the evil that they try to do on the back burner. All we can do is exercise our right and make sure that we're out there and fight and tell people to get into those general elections as well. Politics is serious in this country, clearly, as we see. So we really need to be researching, finding out what can that person do for me as a person of color.
Sasha, I agree with you 100%. When it came out that the governor of Virginia, was blackface in the past, that's interesting. However, I also don't want to hold him accountable for that. And the reason, of course, we need to hold everybody accountable. But the reason why I say that is because of the fact that people are capable of change. We've all experienced change. We're capable of growth. So I personally know someone who was of a different race that was my roommate back in Old Dominion University and my freshman year, and they were something else. Let me just say, they always thought I was stealing something or I was up to no good, and they had to put their stuff and locked away on their side of the room. And if I ever walked near the closet, she thought I was stealing her stuff. So and then all throughout these school years and stuff, as she lived with other people of different races and all these other things, she found change. She may have been raised a certain way, but she changed. So he may have been raised a certain way, but he can develop change. We not only need to look into their past, I agree with you 100% on that, but I also believe that we need to look at what laws and stuff that they are passing now while they're in the office. We also do need to look at our primaries and who the hell is on the polls for the Democratic and the Republican Party. So with that being said, I agree with you 100%, but we cannot okay, look at Joe Biden. He said some things about stuff in the past about Black people, but he has literally reframed, changed his whole mindset after working with Obama. And therefore we need to give them a second chance, not a chance to fool me once, shame on you. Not that type of situation. We need to look at what they're willing to provide and what they're going to do. So I agree with you 100%. People, do your research if you're going to vote. I do not want to influence anybody's voting. I'm not 100% Democrat or Republican. I say look at the individual, look at what they can do for you. I agree with that 100%. But we cannot just hold things against people because of something that they have done in their past if they're capable of learning and changing.
How do we know Biden changed?
I don't know. But
Okay.
sorry.
I just had to ask that. That's all.
No, you're fine. We can never be sure. We can't
Right.
even be sure the people that we call allies are really on our side.
That is true.
When the time comes, that's the proof right there.
Okay.
Kiva?
Okay, so
we
I
let her
will
go.
say this. For when it comes to voting and politics for me, I don't even know how to say this. Like I feel as though like I'm very like socially aware. I'm an activist, I'm an advocate, and I'm all here for social change. But I do not always find politics as my avenue to do so. And that is because, like I was talking about earlier, sometimes I feel as if voting and getting out there and voting, I do feel like sometimes it's good and it has power and it has changed, and I'm not undermining that at all. But sometimes I do wonder if I am just a puppet doing the movements that the puppet master is asking me to do. Because I was in Atlanta trying to vote for Stacey Abrams, and when I tell you it was lines wrapped around Booker T. Washington High School, and and the people in these communities, they have jobs. I was talking to people in the line. One lady had to get out the line because if her 4 kids stayed in aftercare too long, she would have to pay an extra $250 for the 4 of them. So like they know what they're doing to certain communities when it comes to voter suppression. And Biden, I'm not even gonna talk about that man. But another thing about voting is sometimes you think that you're actually voting to get somebody good and you think they're on their side. They could even be one of us. And yes, I'm talking about Keisha Lance Bottoms. They could even be one of us. And then they get in office. And what's the first thing Keisha does? Keisha gives more taxes to the police and shuts down 200 homeless shelters in one of the most in the city in America with one of the highest homeless populations. And then what does she do to those homeless people? She imprisons them when the Super Bowl comes in and when there's a lot of tourists. So I'm just saying, when it comes to politics and stuff, a lot of it is pandering, pander express. It's a lot of people just trying to use us and use us for their own agenda and use us to get to a certain point, and then they're going to forget about it. And my thing is, I don't always know if I am being a part of that when I go out to vote. But I do not want to say, I'm not somewhere like judging people because they don't vote. But I'm also not somewhere like on Twitter like don't vote y'all, don't vote y'all. But I'm also not like everybody go out there and vote, because it's just like this dichotomy with me, and I don't always trust it.
Also, another thing I want to put in there is that it comes down to being educated as far as it goes, because a lot of people aren't as politically educated as they need to be. One of the biggest misconceptions that I keep hearing people say is that you either have to vote Democratic or Republican. Those are your only two choices, because none of the other parties are ever going to get in office. And if you just keep thinking like that, then that's going to be the case. Like, if you keep thinking I have to vote for Democratic, I have to vote for Republican, then that's going to always be the case. There are other parties that you can vote for. There's ways to have them get into office, but we have a certain mindset that's been taught to us, because this is something that I've been taught back when I was in high school, is that these are the only two things that are going to, these are the only two parties that you can vote for that actually matter. So at the end of the day, we have to realize that you need to have a certain amount of political awareness that you yourself have to do research on. Nobody else is going to do that research for you at the end of the day. You have to have that political awareness and that political knowledge, because knowledge is power over everything right now. When it comes to that, you have to have that knowledge yourself and get that knowledge to go out there and find out who has the views closest to you. Find out how you can, help get them in office and stuff, or we're just not going to have anyone that stands for how we think as people as a whole.
That's very interesting, you guys. I do know that everybody's not going to find someone 100% to stand behind you in everything that you have. That's why that they should have at least the majority of the same way that you think and the same way that you want things to go into. So education and educating yourself, but a lot of people may not know where to obtain that knowledge, because as you guys stated, you was not taught in school. So, I myself recently found out from the previous table talk that we had regarding voting and the politics and so forth, of how important it is to still vote for the person that you really want to for the primaries, even though Biden is the leading factor, because those other votes do matter as far as his cabinet. If he's elected, the people that are going to help him orchestrate what is needed in office. That was something I didn't know, and I'm in my hostess. That's what age I am. I'm in my hostess age, and so for you guys, you guys have so much, and like you said, technology helps you learn a lot of things. So with that being said, everything in politics and everything as far as the laws and stuff goes is accessible to everyone. You could just go to, I think it's whitehouse.org, or I don't know, what is the site, Brianna? You're muted.
Hello? Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm not sure of the site. I know that when I Googled it, you can literally look at every policy that's on the congressional floor right now. You can look at the bills that they have passed or said yay or nay to. You can look at your senators and the House of Congress or the House of Representatives to see what they voted for. I can find out real quick if you give me a second.
But I do know that information is accessible to everybody, and a lot of times it seems like it's a lot, but if you put in the search engine, it'll bring up just like defunding the police. And I recently found out that police officers have automatic immunity, qualified immunity once they become a police officer. And that's one of the reasons why the police officers in the past have never been charged. And that's also one of the reasons why police officers have to be fired before they get charged. And right now that bill is on the floor. It is available, and they keep vetoing it. And that veto is due to the other two branches, like TJ was speaking of, which is the judicial branch and the legislative branch. Those are the votes that we need in those other branches of the government to help with the bills to pass for what it is that you see. So that was just my 2 cents into regard of it. Brianna, did you find the
Yes, I did. It is in fact congress.gov, and you can look at all the bills currently on the floor, ones that have been rejected and or passed and became law.
And everyone go look at January 24th, 2019, and let me know what bill you see up there with coronavirus. That's all.
Okay. So now, before we go, there is one topic that we need to discuss that I think is needed because of your generation. I know I post a lot on our page which regards to racism, and I posted something a couple of weeks ago in regards to the brown paper bag, in which is colorism. And I didn't realize that is still a factor in today's society, amongst ourselves as a Black community, that we are still having the light skin versus the dark skin conversation or debate in society. And I want to know how your generation, if you guys have experienced it, and what your generation is doing in regards to that as well.
I think I definitely have, because I was raised in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and one of the big things is that I would be told either, like I've been told many times, you're not Black, you don't act Black, you don't, you light skin, yada yada, half and half. Well, what is your mom, or what is your dad, what is your mom? One of them can't be Black if you look like that or whatever. And I've seen I've seen it happen to different people too. People like black people themselves, dark skinned people and light skinned people, I would say as well, are having this little feud, but in reality we're all Black people at the end of the day. We don't need to be having our own battles against each other when we have to have the battle more while we're already having our battle against the oppressors and stuff right now. So that's just mine. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
I also can say that I have experienced this. Reflecting back, I didn't think I did, but I really did. And when I looked at my old journals and stuff, and I used to write about it. So the whole case, I'm pretty sure you guys all heard of the term Oreo, right? How you're black on the outside, but you're white on the inside. And it's because for my younger life, when I was in, elementary school and parts of middle school, I went to a predominantly white middle school and elementary school. So of course, from what I've been around, and that's how my language, developed and how I developed friendships and stuff like that. So then when I moved and transferred into a predominantly black school, they was calling me Oreo. They wouldn't let me sit at their tables, or I wouldn't be able to understand their concepts of, I guess, reality. And it put me always at an awkward place. And that's probably why I'm so awkward now, but I'm okay with it. So you're going to accept me for who I am. The reason why I think that this is an issue is the same reason, well, not the same reason, but similar to why we want to show white people that they have privilege. It's because those of a lighter complexion have a privilege that wasn't always granted to everybody with a darker complexion, which is why this is developed. It is a problem in our generation currently, and I think once we learn, again, that whole empathy thing, learning to love each other for who they are and not having to have to change people, then we're gonna potentially progress.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes, I have. There was always the assumption, oh, she thinks she's all that because she's light skinned, and it's like I've never been the type of person to think like that. And there was also, I had an incident in school where a girl actually cut my hair. She cut about a good, I want to say 5-6 inches of my hair. And it was upsetting to me because it was like, I never looked at skin color or anything like that. I didn't think about stuff like that. And when my grandmother came, she spoke to the school, and that was when she really shed light on, like, you don't treat people differently based on how people look. She gave a whole speech to my class. And I think another issue is that colorism is pushed widely in a lot of the music. Like, you hear it so much in rap songs. Like, it's ridiculous. It's you hear it and it feels like almost every song. And I think there has to be a topic of discussion where these people are called out on what they're saying, like, because I feel like they're not being held accountable for what they're saying.
Okay.
Mine is pretty quick. I have a brother who is of lighter skin tone. He is light skinned, and he has received a lot of colorism from, oh, you're adopted, because there's no way you could come from 2 brown skinned parents. And my take on colorism, I've had a lot of colorism, especially in middle school. I used to get picked on by my own brothers and sisters who, oh, you're dark, girl. Don't nobody want you. You're skinny. You're black. Like, don't nobody, they praised light-skinned women. They praised it. And like Tamika was saying, music videos, songs, that's all they rap about. A red bump. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think people in our community really understand, once again, on the mental health, how that affects us brown-skinned women, because our whole life, the best compliment we could get is, oh, you're pretty for a brown-skinned girl. Oh, Sasha, you're pretty for a brown-skinned girl. I am I've never found that attractive. I've never found that as a compliment. I think it's actually really, really rude, because I'd rather you judge me on my personality than my skin tone. I don't really think it has a difference. But I really want our brothers and sisters to know that, and I was able to go to therapy and get help through that, because I had to understand that was not a projection of me. That was a projection of them and what they saw at home. And maybe at home, their parents would talk down on, oh, that black B word, you know what I'm saying? So it's like a psychological pass down of things. But that's where, like, if now, like my therapist said, if I was able to look at my bullies and tell them, I would tell them, took a long time for me to gain self-confidence, you know what I'm saying? But it makes us some of the stuff, and that's what I want other people and other races to understand. The stuff that we go through as Black people is so much, on top of going home and dealing with home life, on top of going to school, dealing with school life. It's a lot that we have to process. And I know that this comes from, good job, Facebook user, it did come from slavery. I understand that. William Lynch wrote that, that separated the house Negro from the cotton Negro, the slave Negro, and I understand it put us against each other. And it's unfortunate that all these years later, we are still implementing that. That's why in music and rap now, I really wish in music videos, they can show diversity. I don't mind a light-skinned and a brown-skinned woman, showing them both together, loving each other, not fighting, not, ratchet, fighting over the same man. You know what I'm saying? So we need to change our prerogative and how and it all starts with self-love too. You know what I'm saying? We all know Black, we're all Black, the sweeter the juice. So I just want us to be more loving towards one another. We're all brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? So that's my piece on that.
Kiva, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody pretty much said anything. I think growing up, I didn't really I would say I didn't deal with colorism, but I didn't notice a lot of colorism because I feel like my parents did a good job of kind of sheltering me from that and giving me like self-confidence at a young age. But I think I started to notice a lot, especially on social media. And one thing that is really like interesting to me is how people have this sort of amnesia. So like a lot of us can talk about how, like, especially a lot of dark skin, when we can talk about how when we're younger, we experienced this from this group of people, and a lot of people said these comments towards us. And I feel like a lot of dark skinned women have a lot of memories and negative memories attached to their skin tone. And then we get on social media and it's like, ooh, I love my Black queens. And it's almost this amnesia that we have. And I also feel like, especially on social media, when it comes to dark skinned women, it's like, first, I feel like people only really like dark skinned women on social media when she's like half naked and all oiled up and looking nice. And then secondly, I feel like when dark skinned women try to talk about our stories with colorism, it's like silence. They're like, oh, we all Black. Oh, we all Black. And it's like, clearly there is something deeper here if there's a trend and we all have stories about this. You know what I mean? I just don't like this like amnesia that's kind of going along with the colorism talk. And it's like, you are the exact sort of person that would make fun of her for her skin tone, and now you want her to like forget about it because we all Black. Like, that's what I don't like about this whole colorism thing.
I have a really quick question. Do you all think that ties into when our brothers and sisters say, I only date light-skinned men, I only date brown-skinned women, I only date white women, I only date, and I am not saying that you cannot have a preference. That's everybody's entitled to their own opinion. However, to me, something like that should not be vocalized, because if you're looking at only light-skinned women, right, but then not understanding why your relationships is not going where you would anticipate them to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just get me another light-skinned woman. So what is your take on that, if y'all don't mind me asking?
I always say, if your type is light skin with curly hair, with big curly hair, stay away from me. Because what do we have to talk about? Stay away from me. Because I feel like if that is your type and that's your preference, I don't need to be up in that, because I know what that is. I know where that is, and I know where that stems from. So and another thing I think people forget is that, and it goes back to this talk about freedom, is that our choices that we think are choices, our preferences that we think are preference, are really these long-term kind of pre-programmed things in society that we think is beautiful, these pre-programmed things that we think is beauty, that we think is attractiveness, that we want to look like, that we think is perfect, that we think is beautiful. We are pre-programmed to think that. So when I see somebody kind of falling in line right with that and being loud and bold about it too, I'm like, stay away from me, because as a dark-skinned Black woman, I'm the furthest thing from society's standard of beauty. And so when I see you praising that, I'm like, I want nothing to do with that.
What
Um,
gets me with that, when men say that they don't like darker women, it's like, and for the ones that have dark skinned mothers, it's like, how do you think your mom feels that you feel that way? That this is how you speak? Like, how dare you say that?
Hmm. That's a very good one. TJ,
um,
as a
for
man,
one,
you know.
I'm gonna go back to what Sasha. There's nothing wrong with having preferences. First of all, like that's nothing wrong with having preferences. But when you coming out and saying that, that can be taken as offensive. I had to correct a brother back at like one of my old jobs, little Black dude. Not gonna say his name because I want to put him on blast. But I remember one day he came in and said, "Yeah, man, I don't date Black women. I only date white women because black women too loud. They too mean. They too yada yada." And I'm like, okay, look, dude. And then like almost every other week he'd come in after with some new white chick or whatever. He'd be like, "Yeah, this is my new girl. It didn't work out too well with the last chick." And I'm just like, well, maybe if you just stop seeking specifically one type of person, then you'll have different results, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting different results. If you just keep doing the exact same thing and expecting different results, then that it falls on you. That's your own problem right there. So I feel like there's nothing wrong with having preferences, but you need to be willing to date outside of those preferences. At the end of the day, they're just preferences. They're not set rules. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, this was a very, very good conversation, and I do think that we will have a youth explosion part two, because there's so much more that you guys have to say, and I just want to thank you all for coming in and enlightening our members. And before we all go, I'm going to let each one of you give us a final statement of what your expectations are, what you want, and what you're planning on doing to help in your community. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start this one with you, TJ.
One of the big things is I plan on voting more, becoming more politically aware, because I don't have a whole lot of political knowledge, even though I have more than I used to. Obviously, going out and protesting, having my voice be heard, because I do have my First Amendment, and I'm gonna exercise that. And then personally, as an artist, animator, I want to have more Black representation in my craft as well, because I feel like there's not a lot of Black representation. The typical superhero is Superman, white dude. Typical, cartoon characters. Just you see a lot more white than you see Black. So I want to, with my craft specifically, make us be seen more, and also political and all that.
Awesome. Tamika, you're mute.
You're muted.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, no problem. I was just stating, as we come to a close, to your final statement as far as what you want, your expectations, and what are you going to do for your community, the betterment of your community.
So one of the things that I do want to see is I want to see black more black businesses that are out in the open. And one of the things I hate seeing is, like, if I go to Google something, like, or I'm on Instagram, every time I go to search something, the main thing is white people. Like, why do I literally have to type in black? Like, I look up a hairstyle, it's nothing but white people. It's like, I want to already see it. I don't want to have to type black for something. Like, I want to naturally see things like that in the algorithm, or even have our own platform of our own websites of things and more black businesses, so that there's just things that we can have of our own. One of the things that I did mention in the beginning is that I'm about to go to school for to be a nail technician, and that's something I would like to see more. I would like to see more Black nail salons. I personally have never been to a Black nail salon.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are Black nail technicians, but that's something I do want to see more Black businesses. And that's something that I hope that I can do in the future one day, that I can bring a Black business to my community.
Awesome. Awesome. Brianna?
I did want to talk about, for my expectations, I do believe education is the key. Education, knowledge is power. We all know that. We've all heard it multiple times throughout our childhood and growing up. And I've already been in my community educating people on mental health. And now I really want to talk about political views, science, and all the other research that I'm going to be doing on myself. I'm actually going to go back to school for political science. And so that way I can have a better understanding of what I want people to understand, so that they can show in other ways how their voices can be heard. I also, on that education run through that I'm talking about, I don't know, I really want to see politics talked about in an early age in school, not when you're 18 and like, here, go vote. Like, I really want people to have a better understanding of that political knowledge. I do also want to see that empathy. I want to see people be more loving towards each other and understanding each other's from the history. Like, we need to figure out a way, because Black history is American history. That needs to be put back in schools the correct way. Why do we have to wait till we get to college to actually learn Black history or the truth of history? That whole aspect needs to change as well, because not everybody goes to college, and college is not for everybody. So because of that, you still need to have a way to obtain this knowledge without being placed in a position in which is going to be detrimental to you or your pockets, financially wise.
Right.
But that's a whole other situation I'm gonna get into later. But at the end of the day, it is education and empathy. So my 2 E's.
All right.
Silence is compliance. Please do not be silent on anything. If you personally do not want to go out and protest, there's other ways that you can inform the community. There's other ways that you can share knowledge. Please be safe. I personally am working my butt off to make a change. I am planning on my Black-owned business. Look out for that. Give me about 2 years max. I'm opening up a restaurant chain. I want us as Black people to eat better. Okay? We
All right.
live longer and live on this beautiful earth just as well as everybody else. So I'm working on that, as well as get into those higher up positions. I'm working on either being on the school board. I'm working on either being in social work. I might go back to school for that. Haven't really decided my path. I'm going to wait for some things to come around. And any of you followers who want to help me out, I appreciate it. Be the lawyers, be the doctors. Do not let them tell you you cannot make it. You need to make choices. You need to be vocal, be firm in who you are. It is okay to be unapologetically Black. It is okay to be proud. It is okay to love yourself and know your worth, and not allow anybody, whether our brothers and sisters or other people in other races, to deter you, because you are strong. You know who you are, and just keep working on yourself, people, and we're going to make a change. I'll be out there in the streets. I'll be out there helping out in Brooklyn and Virginia. I'll be in both, helping out. And I just really want us to start making some changes. Protesting is beautiful, but we need to make some changes. So that's my piece on that.
Awesome. And Kiva, our finale, what would you like to share with us?
Well, what I will continue to do is I'll continue to advocate for the protection of Black girlhood and Black womanhood. I'm always going to do that. I'm always going to advocate for our historically Black colleges and universities. I am an HBCU baby through and through, and I will always do that. And I will always try to be a part of dismantling heteropatriarchy.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I thank you all again. And again, this will take place. We haven't decided the date, but we will let it be known on the page. And thank you guys for being here with us. And you guys have a great, great rest of your weekend. So bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.